I'm gonna edit that in. Man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The time goes by really quick. I feel like there was still a lot of stuff we could chit chat about.
Oh yeah, that went by super fast. I thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. And if you're serious about that, I'm more than willing to come back anytime you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't just say that. Like I like the feel of it, everything you're talking about. I think it'd be fun, and man, I love networking and connecting with folks. So the more you write, let's have you back on. You can talk about the book.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'll definitely do that, Jordan.
Awesome. I wanted to. At first, I didn't mean to like catch you off guard with the faith question. I know that kind of sideswiped you a bit.
No worries. I'm not afraid to discuss it. It's just, it's not. Nah, no worries at all. I'm not afraid to discuss that.
It's good because I get the question a lot as well, and I know I've said my piece about it several times on the show, and I just feel like it's nice to have someone else like have their perspective on it, so it's not just me saying it. You know what I mean? Like, do you have kids?
And one, I have 2 stepchildren.
Okay, so you know how like you could say the same thing over and over and over again, but like somebody across the street says it, and they're like, "Oh, well, Billy said this," and it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I've been saying that for years. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel. Like, I wanted a different perspective because I've had Christians on the show. I've had folks that talk about their faith, especially like different, people in ministry that also go and do investigations or write books and things like that. I just like to have just a little extra, hey, this is another Christian giving his point of view.
Yeah.
I like
And it's one of those things, I think we're conditioned to kind of bury it down so we feel like we're always alone. And it's not the case. Like one of the things I found out, and I probably did it, I don't even know how many episodes, 10 years, I found there's a lot more Christians in this area or arena than you would ever anticipate.
There really is. There really is. And like, I've had so many in the show, and listen, this is even crazier, right? So, oh, hold on. I don't know if you can hear. I'm a volunteer fire department. The radio is going off.
Okay.
No, but when I started doing investigations, it was a ministry for us because like 90% of the places we went to, if it wasn't like investigating like the penitentiary or something like that, it was going into people's houses that were scared, and most of the time it was church people. And it was higher up. It was pastors that were, something was going on. They were afraid to tell the congregation or reach out to anybody else because they didn't want that stigma on them. Or it was like worship pastors in churches, things like that. But like higher up leadership in like not just one church, you know what I mean? Several different churches and denominations were asking these questions and would reach out to us. And that was most of the places we went to. Like they know something's going on. And I think you had the perfect thing. The perfect answer was Christians get scared too.
Well, that's the truth. And I think that's very interesting to see that's what you were doing. And it is almost like a ministry. And some people are called into different ministries. I mean, clearly you were called into ministry. You're an ordained Christian minister, so there's a reason you're doing what you're doing. And, even like taking my book, like you don't have to read this. You're not going to turn into a Christian at the end of the book. Right. But who I am is in there. Like, I'm going to say this kind of off the record. The theme of the book is, I don't know, you're familiar with the artist Andrew Peterson?
No.
Musician. Well, I found him through a Christmas album, but then I found more of his music. He's more kind of like a folksy kind of musician. He wrote a song called "The Silence of God," and I discovered, of course, that song during a very difficult time. And that is the theme of life is in the blood, is the silence of God. And when you get the book, and if you get the book and you read it, knowing that there is characters of completely different like thoughts and backgrounds. Only one person is an oak and doesn't break. And that is, even though there's no answers coming back to their, so like I said, it bleeds into everything that I do. And I think to write something as a Christian, not necessarily aimed at like whatever, but to get it out there in a way that will connect with an audience that wouldn't necessarily be receptive is important. Kind of like what you're doing with the radio show. A lot of people who are into the paranormal aren't receptive to Christianity, but when they start to see that, oh, Jordan is doing the show, he's very receptive to these ideas that I have. He's willing to listen to them. Well, maybe I have a misconception about what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah.
So it begins to open. So it's a different way. It's a different way to minister. I mean, and even when I did my radio show, The Grand Dark Conspiracy is in my mind, the name of it sounds real cryptic and scary. And it's looking at the whole of the paranormal world and saying, if we look too close at this stuff and allow it to confuse us, then we'll never get the answers we need. And maybe this was created in a way to keep us in the dark.
Yeah, and like one way you can look at it too, Daniel, is we can reach people that pastors can't.
Exactly. Right, because you're standing behind the pulpit, you might be doing an outreach, but people still see, and they still see, you're the church, and so I'm not entering into that world.
Yeah.
Whereas you pick up a nice vampire book, you got this evil vampires turning people, using the word of God to turn people into more vampires to eat Amish people. Well, that's pretty cool. What's that have to do with, the Christian faith?
Everything. It has everything to do with it. No.
Right. So it's one of those things. Like, yeah, you're right. We have the opportunity to reach people. And one of the things I've been when I did the radio show, I had a minister was like, why are you doing this? It's like, because I'm reaching people that you're not. Mm-hmm. I'm touching people that you can't, because they're not going to come into your church. Yeah. It's like I'm putting these questions out there because I felt like I was compelled to do that. Like I did I got a lot of backlash. I did a live Ouija board session on Halloween night. And oh my gosh. You would have thought I was calling Cthulhu out of the deep.
You had several strongly written letters sent to you.
Oh my gosh, email after email. People, why are you doing this? Like, to show people, because I had all these different perspectives presented during, I had the skeptical perspective, I had a person who talked about the ideomotor effect. I had a person talking about how this is a gateway, and another person talking about how this is a communication device, and all these things to present a full spectrum of how people view this one thing.
Okay, I understand that.
But yeah, it's but in the end, the last thing I played was how this is a gateway.
Yeah. That's smart.
That's what I left people with.
That's smart. For me, I've learned to be more intentional. I did a convention, like I said, I do conventions, and I did one convention where there was somebody from the Church of Satan passing out recruiting stuff, right? And then here I am, I'm like, oh my gosh, so all these people were I have people come to my table that are witches, covens, and pagans, all across the realm, right? And I'm thinking right. This guy's handing out tracts, and here I am, pretty devout in my faith. I'm just sitting here doing nothing. So since then I started bringing my Bible with me, and I have it sitting right in the middle of the table. So even if they just walk up, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to bring it out, but they see it right there. So they know what I'm about. Like, and, sometimes they ask questions. It's not, on the air, we're not recording when they do, but there's some people that come up and start asking questions, or, hey, I'm so glad to see somebody else of faith here. I was kind of nervous down that hallway over there, so it's nice.
So to go back to the Church of Satan thing, I had the high priestess of the Church of Satan. I can't remember her name on my show.
Oh.
And this was during the time when like ISIS was the big deal, right? Everyone was worried about ISIS and cells in America. I got her to say that the Church of Satan is like ISIS. If you were to cut off the head of one of our covens, another coven would rise. She literally said that.
Wow.
They were like ISIS.
Wow.
I was like, wow. She had the Anton LaVey's baby or something like that. I don't know. Can't remember her name for the life of me.
That's intense.
I was like, dude, I can't believe you just said that. But I was like in the studio going, yes. This is good for me.
That's when you mute the mic and you're like, yeah.
I can't believe you said that, but yes, you're not nearly as smart as you think you are.
I had those when I was doing live radio. I went the other way. I started live radio and then I went to podcasting. You went to podcasting to live radio.
Yeah.
But when I was doing it, I mean, there were so many times where like we would mute the mic and be like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what is this guy saying? This is incredible." Radio gold. Keep them talking.
Yeah, exactly. I had a psychic on and she was like naming people's full names and she was like local.
Oh no.
Like to the area. And I was just like, and she was clearly she didn't even believe what she was doing. She was just the flim flam artist. And I just kind of just let her just keep going and just keep,
keep burying yourself. Keep
lengthening the rope. Yeah. Keep lengthening that rope. And I had people like texting me, just hang up with her. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm lighting her hangers off. Needless to say, we were no longer Facebook friends after that.
Yeah, I had one psychic wanting to be on the show, and she's like, "Yeah, I want to come on the show, But she said something. She's like, "Yeah, all the stuff we do here is just for the tourists." And I'm like, "Oh man,
oh my gosh,
oh Lord,
no thanks." I mean, where are you on that? Do you feel that's like legitimate, or do you like
on psychics?
The whole psychic thing.
I'm actually gonna. I know it doesn't sound like you like the guy that much, but Bishop James Long made a comment, and it stuck with me. It's one of three things, right? It's either true, right? It's really happening.
Yeah.
It's fake, and they're making it up, and they're charlatans, right? Yeah. Or they're schizophrenic. Like, it's got to be one of those three things.
See, yeah, I think that a lot of them believe what they're doing is true. They don't even realize that and I'm not going to say it doesn't happen because I had one on the show and I was always entertaining it. I was always open. I had only one really be like, well, how did you, what? Because it was like, a conversation like this. It wasn't on air. She like broke down my entire situation. And the thing that got me about it is I don't advertise my personal life at all on social media. You won't find that. You'll find books, you'll find a little bit of animals, and I really don't go a whole lot into what's going on in my personal life.
Yeah.
Never have. So I had just gotten a new job. I wasn't happy with what I was getting paid. And, I had been like laid off for a year and doing all that. And we go to a break and she's like, oh, by the way, my spirit guide wants me to tell you, stop complaining about how much you're making at your new job. You're where you need to be right now. And you're on the path that you need to be on. So you just know that, things will change and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, wait a second. I had just started a new job that day. She was a last second replacement for a guest that ended up getting pneumonia and being put in the hospital. So her
Oh, wow.
publicist found somebody else to be a guest on the show.
So not
So
even
there
enough
was like
time to
no
do
time for
research.
her. No, even if, like, how would she couldn't have found out that I just started a new job that day either.
And I
that I was not happy about the pay.
Like I said, each person is one of those three things. I believe there are people out there that have gifts. There are, and I've been to churches where there is, prophecies and things like that. We have a guy in our church that, he's a prophet. You know what I mean? He could read your mail up ways, down ways, and everything. I believe people, God gives people gifts, right? So I believe it's out there.
I believe that.
But it's not everybody, right? I know there's some people out there that are just scamming people for an extra buck. No, there are.
Yeah, charlatans. Like that's the word, charlatans. Yeah, that you use. That's the good word. Yeah, and it's just like anything else. I mean, there's good paranormal investigators and there's bad ones. I mean, I can't even watch Ghost Adventures. Actually, I can't. Only ones I watch are Ghost Brothers because they make me laugh.
Hey, I had an investigator on. This is when I was back doing radio. And I actually paid to have this guy come. I rented out the West Virginia State Penitentiary, and
oh, that's awesome.
I hosted an event there, and I had two people. One of them, a great guy, great friend. His name's Dwayne Claude. He's a demonologist, written books. Animal Planet did like a documentary about him. One of my favorite people. One of my favorite people. He came down, and then there was an investigator that came down too. And he had his own method, right? And he was getting well known for his method. And man, he was the biggest disappointment because people were coming up to me and be like, hey, this guy, we're watching him fake these EVPs. Like he's like they were coming to me, they'd pay tickets to this. Oh, I was so mad.
What was his name?
Oh, shall I say on Patreon, huh? Sure.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Well.
Herb Street was his name. He cost me money. I'll say his name. Herb Street.
It's just Herb Street. Okay. I was thinking of another person, but because they got but interesting. You just.
Yeah, but this guy was, people paid tickets, bought tickets to this. It was supposed to be the special deal, and they're walking around with him, and he's just like straight up faking EVP stuff. And I brought him back on the air. I brought him back on the air after the show. We did a whole thing, and I think I slammed him pretty hard on the air. I don't know if I put that back. I don't know if I recorded it and kept it on there, but man, we talked about him a lot on the air. That's for sure.
You remember the big Bigfoot hoax back in the day? I don't know, it's 12 years ago.
Is that the one where they had him in the freezer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like 2 weeks after that all broke as a hoax, I had one of the people on my show to talk about it. That was an interesting conversation. Because strangely, it didn't need to be like combative. He was just like completely open.
So he was like, yeah, we faked it.
We probably shouldn't have done it. I kind of regret doing it now. It's like, now I don't know what I'm going to do with all this stuff because I built this whole part of my life, part of my revenue around Bigfoot, and now I have no credibility. It's like, they were kind of talked into it by the other guy. I can't remember his name.
Well, I mean, that's good.
Scardy.
Like, he was pretty vocal. This is what happens when you fake things. I have nothing now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I wasn't like, it's just interesting. I was like, I'm going to have to ask these hard questions. And that was another one I had on Lloyd Auerbach. You ever get the opportunity to talk to Lloyd Auerbach?
That name sounds really familiar.
So he's really approachable. So if you ever want to have him on, he's super awesome guy.
Okay.
He's a paranormal investigator, and like he's OG. He's like 1980s. He's like Barry Taft, Warren, that time frame.
Okay.
So he's not. He's very approachable. He's got some really interesting ideas. But he this was interesting. The Ghost Hunters, the Ghost Hunters show went
Uh-huh.
to a location that he claimed was haunted, and they went through and they did what they called their debunking, because there was like props that were there, so people didn't have, this is a purported haunted location, and the proprietors wanted to make sure people got a little thrill when they were there, even though it was like these cheesy props.
Yeah.
And I guess Lloyd Auerbach did like a 10-year investigation. Basically, he'd been investigating that place, and they basically said that anyone who said this is a haunting is a fraud. It was basically called Lloyd Auerbach a fraud.
Ooh.
So I had him on the day after that aired, and that's all he wanted to talk about. That was a fun episode.
I bet. Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
I bet he was
he's a great
heated.
guy. Oh, he was definitely heated. He actually went to a couple conventions and confronted them because they wouldn't ever answer his emails or his phone calls or anything like that.
Ooh, dirty.
Yeah, so that's the paranormal drama. I know that's always gone on.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I know
right.
one friend would always laugh about the paranormal unity thing, because it's like it's so many ideas and everybody's got their own ambitions and their own motivations. It's kind of hard to pull that all together.
Yeah, I do like the people that are for it because there's some really like just cool, chill paranormal folks out there. There really are like some just real genuine, like you're one, like just, yeah, talk to me. I'm approachable. Let's have a conversation. Like I couldn't even begin to tell you, like I am blessed beyond measure, right, with this show. Like I'll get on like the Twitter and just talk to folks that are on all these paranormal TV shows, and we just have like big, open, just awesome conversations, right? And schedule them for the show. Like we just have great talks, and it's like, who am I? Like they're talking to me. You know what I mean? Like what do I do that even grants a response? Right. But they're just such chill people. They're like, yeah, I'll talk to you. Let's have a good time.
That was always what blew my mind. Like I'm having people on here that, like what? I know you mentioned having Stanton Friedman on.
Oh,
like
yeah.
How approachable was Stanton Friedman? How amazing was that gentleman?
He was top tier. He was literally one that, like, if I had a guest drop out, Dwayne Claude was one, Sherry Brake was one, and Stan Freeman was like, hey, Stan, we got somebody dropped out. You got anything to do tonight? And he was like, oh, I'll do it, and we could never shut him up.
Awesome. Oh, he was great. And I loved his approach to the subject, too. Like, he was so amazing.
And he was so much smarter than I will ever be. So he could make up anything he wanted. Like, I could just, yeah, you're probably right there. Because, I mean, he's a physicist. Like, I don't even know half the words you're talking about, Stan.
I'm so jealous of you, though. I heard that you talked to Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, she was another one. So, like, literally calling her up, I thought I was going to call, like, an agent, booking agent, and, like, try to schedule a time. So we just call this number, and, hello, it's her. Like, she had her own personal phone number listed on their website. Like, are you kidding me?
So the day my last show was supposed to, my show got canceled, they literally were like, don't come in, give us your keys. There's a whole long story behind it. I don't even want to go into it.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong, let me say that. And it just was, there was a sister station where a person had a real bug up their butt, the fact that we had a paranormal radio show on their radio family. All it ended up, and he just had the ear of the owner and just kept haranguing him until the guy was just like, it's done. So anyway, I had 2 awesome interviews lined up, and I also had 4 satellite cities lined up. So if I had affiliates, basically, that was $500 a month going into my pocket, and then $500 a month going into the radio station's pocket. It's a pretty nice chunk of change.
Yeah.
Like Minneapolis. I had 4 cities lined up, ready to come on board. The next 2 guests I had lined up were one of the creators of Night of the Living Dead, not George Romero, and then it was Lorraine Warren. And I worked really hard to get that. And then the show got canceled. So I never had the opportunity to talk to her. And, of course, she's gone on to meet her maker. And now it'll never happen.
I
So,
wish I was a more mature person when I talked to her. If that makes sense. I was in my early 20s, you know, I was goofing off and half paying attention to half the stuff I was doing. Like, I'm sure it was a decent interview. You know, we talked and had a good time. But, like, looking back, you know, 38 years old, I would have appreciated so much more that conversation.
so how long ago was that? You spoke to her?
Oh, goodness gracious. Let's see. I can actually tell you in just a second. Let me scroll through them because I have it on my if you go to like Apple Podcasts, I don't know if you follow the show. You should. I don't know anybody out there that's
I
not
do.
doing it. If you go back,
I'm a subscriber.
if you go down into the Whispers shows, because I have all those on backlog.
Gotcha.
Let me see. It was one of the earlier ones. Let me start at the beginning. Because I in no way deserved it. I was nobody.
Well, it needed to happen, or it wouldn't have happened, right?
It's like I'm not smart enough. My brain doesn't work well enough to know how long before we started recording that we did it. But like my first recorded show is August 6th, 2008. And I had Stanton Friedman on August 27th. So like somehow I managed to get him like right out the gate.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing. I did too. I mean, I want to say I was like 2000. I don't even know. It's so long. I don't have the ability to pull it up because everything's down. But
March 3rd.
Yeah, it was like
March 3rd, 2009. I had Lorraine Warren on.
Nice. Yeah, because from what I understood at that point, she wasn't in the best health, and when I was trying to get her on, and she wasn't really doing interviews. But I don't know if you know who Dave Considine is.
Sounds familiar.
I was really good friends with Dave, and he is like one of the people who Ed and Lorraine mentored.
Oh wow!
So he actually knew him. So he was working that to get her on the show, and she agreed to come on to just do a radio interview. So that was a bummer, but I'm jealous. Jealous that you got that opportunity, but I'm also happy for you that you got the opportunity.
Oh well, thank you.
Because yeah, it's one of those things. Like I totally get what you're saying. Who am I? Why are these people agreeing to talk to me? You've got a PhD. You've been doing this for 40 years. Like I'm still blown away when I'm sitting there watching TV and some expert comes on and I'm like, oh, I talked to that guy.
Yeah, that happens to me. Like if you ever get into like the alien stuff, Joe Montaldo. He's on all the alien shows. He's been on like George Norrie Coast to Coast like 5 different times. Like he pops up there and he's like, wait a second, I know him. Like we used to talk all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like and the ancient aliens that talk to Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Yep, I have too. Yep.
Philip Coppens. It's just like, wow, like really, you're on TV, you're coming doing my little show. I actually had like show producers come on and like pitch shows to my audience. If you got it, it's like, hit me up, like, oh, okay.
Like last time I checked, I'm a nobody. What do they call that? Imposter syndrome? Like,
yeah, I guess.
You realize I'm nobody, right? Do you guys know that?
Right. I guess that says something about a kind of having like a more humble spirit. You don't feel like you're entitled. You feel like you still have to prove things. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
That's
to think that way.
Was just a few weeks ago, I was out on Twitter and I was like, hey, I'm looking to, do some more bookings. Where are my paranormal people at? So I started getting all these messages. So I'm just like, okay, tell me about your group, where you're from, what you do. We'll see. I want to make sure we get it evened out, And, one guy, he's like, oh, well, I'm one of the investigators on 28 Days Haunted on Netflix. I'm like, wait, what? Like, oh. Hi.
Cool. Come on. Yeah. How are you doing? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mentioned Bob Larson. He literally tried to come on my show.
Really?
I didn't let him. Yeah. I was like, nope.
That's funny. Bob Larson. Casting out them demons.
Oh, God. Color me bad. Anyway. But yeah, it is that you said the imposter syndrome. I totally get that. Like, but clearly you're doing something right. You have a great way of getting, you're chill. You're receptive, you're chill, and you let people talk. You give them the space. And clearly you're paying attention. So, I mean, you do a great job. So I think it makes it easier when people go to listen to your show and they see that. And yeah, I want to go on there because I know I'm not going to be talked over or beat up. I'm going to get my ideas out there, and maybe even more than I expected, because you've got a good interviewer here who's attentive and a good listener. So you're going to have better questions and drive more out there. So kudos to you, because you really absolutely deserve to have those great guests.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And my wife's listening to that too, so I'm glad.
So if I pre-order your book, you're going to sign it for me. So when you're famous, I'm going to make lots of money off of it, right?
I mean, you can put it right up on eBay. It'll probably be good $10, $15. But absolutely, all the pre-orders that I do, I will be signing.
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for people to read it, and that's like I'm a little nervous because only people that have read it are mostly friends, family, and my beta readers. So it's just like,
yeah. The second you said you could pre-order on your website, she grabbed her phone and got to your website.
I want to be a beta reader for your next novel. Sorry.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, if you want, I can get Micah to send you guys over an advanced reader copy. It'll just be an ebook, but
of course,
I got your email address. I can have him send it over.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send it. She can read incredibly fast. Her brain works a lot better than mine. I'll read a paragraph and it'll take me half the day to make sure, because I'm like a little OCD, so I got to read it and then reread it and then reread it. And did I forget that word? I better read it again. She can read 3 chapters in 5 minutes.
Well, I learned how to speed read when I was doing the radio show.
Yeah.
I could literally sit down and read a 300-page book in 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, that's how she is. Drives me nuts.
But when I'm reading something I really like, I slow it down, because I want to really pull everything out of it that I can.
I'll find an article, I'll start reading it on my cell phone to her, and she'll just come over and glance over my shoulder, and she's like, okay, you can scroll down. I'm like, wait a second. I'm on the second line. She's like, I've already read it. I'm like, stop it. All right, man. I'm going to get all this edited probably over the weekend. I work a double tomorrow, so it's definitely not happening tomorrow. But after I get it all finished, I will send you a direct link to the audio, and then you can do whatever you want to with it. And then it'll be on all the major podcast platforms Monday morning.
Sweet. Of course, I'm going to do what I can to promote it.
All right, man. I really appreciate it.
This was awesome, man.
I've had a great time.
As have I. I mean, this was a lot of fun.
All right, and thank Micah for me, and I'll send him a message too. I've had a blast. Tell him to send me more people. If they're like you,
sure
I want them.
Take it in. There's only one me, and I hope so.
That's what I told him. I was like, you're a publicist. Send me some people. He goes, I got the perfect one. So he sent me you.
Oh yeah, anytime, man. I love this. So get some sleep. Stay safe.
Yeah, man. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.